Hello and welcome to the Qatar Grand Prix pre-race show, also the Outside the Cockpit pre-race show, powered by the Intermission Sports. My name is Sam Donzik, your host. Just me today, solo run. We've got a lot to talk about this weekend. Obviously, heading into Qatar after a very, very scintillating Brazilian Grand Prix with lots of drama, and it is obviously not done. The latest news from the stewards was that they were not going to review the right review for that Mercedes put forward. So obviously, no penalty regardless. But anyways, let's just move on to our Friday practice rundown. Looking at Friday practice, it was a bit of a mixed bag between who was really the fastest between Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, Valtteri Bottas. And as we can see here, Valtteri Bottas grabbed the quickest lap time on here. He grabbed, it was currently P1, as you can see, with a 1:23:1:48. Pierre Gasly short behind, obviously 2/10 behind. Max Verstappen 3/10 behind, 3/10 of a second, 3/10 of a second. So again, not terribly slow behind, but I was surprised to see Lewis Hamilton so far down in practice too, even despite getting that new, obviously that new engine that everyone's talking about, and to see whether or not obviously that straight line speed will be a true advantage going into Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and then Abu Dhabi, because obviously the next three tracks that we're going into have insanely long straights. They have a really long straight, we all know. So it does favor Hamilton per se, or Mercedes, with their pure straight line speed. So obviously, clearly, AlphaTauri looked really strong on Friday. Red Bull looked, again, super strong, still really good compared to Mercedes. Lewis Hamilton, again, only P4, not the greatest practice run for P2, for practice one, but for practice two, sorry. Looking back at practice one, though, as we can see, Max Verstappen, again, a similar lap time, 1:23:7:23. Pierre Gasly, again, up there as well. Mercedes was really strong, again, but 4/7 off the pace. So is it so that maybe in Qatar, and based on the weather conditions, obviously these are different practice runs, that they're different, they're running different setups, so it's really hard to tell just purely based on two practice sessions who will be the quickest this weekend. But based on what we have, based on what we've seen so far, it looks like Red Bull has a decent chance, as well as AlphaTauri, to put a car in pole position, or at least in the front row. They have a solid position. I was surprised even seeing this, because obviously going into the weekend, we all thought, okay, Mercedes is going to dominate the straight line speed. Lewis is going to dominate, practice one, practice two, practice three, and qualifying. We've obviously yet to see the qualifying runs to see where that exact pace is in terms of the race pace to qualifying pace. But just purely looking at the Friday practice, we can see that Mercedes, Red Bull, AlphaTauri are all looking strong. Ferrari's still looking really strong, obviously, compared to where McLaren was. And McLaren didn't really have the best of days. Obviously, all the way down in, where are they here? Yeah, P11. And then obviously Lando Norris as well, P10. So not the greatest day for McLaren, but regardless, it's still practice. It's still early on as well. So that's your Friday practice run day. Now let's move on. Obviously, going back to the news that we all want to talk about as well is the title fight. Because obviously right now, as it stands, where the constructors standings are, which I'll pull up in a second as well, it's still very close, only 14 points between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. So you can clearly see the battle here. Obviously, 332 to 318. Again, there's that 0.5 points between the two of them. So still very, very close. And another battle that I want to also point out as well is the battle between Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc, that I think is going a little bit under the radar due to the fact that, again, they're not fighting for the championship. But regardless, it is still a very close battle, only 3 points between the two drivers as well. But focusing purely on the title fight and looking ahead to these next three races, where I think it will swing, is that it is crucial for Lewis Hamilton, again, to win in Qatar this weekend, because if he doesn't, he then has to win in Saudi Arabia. Plus, his chances are very, very slim going into then Abu Dhabi. Max Verstappen would have to finish outside the points, probably in Saudi Arabia, if Max Verstappen were to win this weekend in Qatar, to extend his lead to possibly 21 points if he gets the fastest lap, which he would as well. And that's interesting as well, looking forward again to next weekend, Saudi Arabia, in 2 weeks as well at Jeddah for Saudi Arabia. But for me, realistically, even being a Max fan, a Max Verstappen fan, it's very hard for me to think that with Mercedes' new engine that they fitted for Lewis Hamilton, that Max Verstappen has a really close chance, a really good chance at winning this title this year. Because obviously, again, he had a really big lead. It's slowly been diminished. He still has a 14-point lead. Even if Max loses and Lewis wins, he still has a 7-point lead, but it's about the momentum. The momentum is starting to swing towards Lewis Hamilton's way, towards Mercedes' way. And if it continues, then they're going to continue to win and it's not going to be over. Because obviously right now at the current standpoint as well in the constructors, Mercedes currently has a stand of about 13 points over Red Bull. So when you look at that, you can clearly see that, it's not only purely about the driver standings, it's about the constructor standings as well for Red Bull. So you can see here as well for the teams, looking here, 521 to, sorry, my bad, 11-point gap between Mercedes and Honda, between Mercedes and Red Bull. So again, still very close between the two title fighters. And I think it's super important as well for both drivers, Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen, Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton as well, to realize the importance of every battle that they have on track in terms of the championship. Obviously, they realize this as well, how important this is. But I think having, a close battle on track and battling off track with all the politics behind it, I think it's just really funny as well that Toto Wolff and Mercedes came out and said after that, said they weren't going to appeal Lewis Hamilton's disqualification from qualifying because they said we will win the battle on the track this year. And then they go to appeal a penalty for, that was not given to the right to view, obviously, after the Brazil Grand Prix. So we can clearly see, obviously, but on both sides, they're a bit of a diva. And again, you have to fight for every inch in a championship like this, where every single point matters. Because let's say hypothetically, Max Verstappen loses 3 less points. Okay, well, that 14-point lead now just become 11 points. And that's now more points. That's 3 more points for Mercedes against Red Bull in the championship. So now it's 524 to 510. That's now a 14-point gap. So it's the little things that matter in a championship this close, in a title fight this close to everything in the grand scheme of things. So I think that looking forward towards Qatar this weekend, Saudi Arabia in 2 weeks, and then Abu Dhabi at the last race of the year, what I'm really looking forward to see is obviously how well Mercedes and Red Bull can both carry themselves. Honestly, because the last thing, I really am just tired of this whole drama thing. I'm tired of having the drama between, Red Bull and Mercedes. Again, it's somewhat exciting as well. It's, it's good to have some drama off track as well as on track when there's not even a race happening, when there's not even a race weekend happening. But really, the driving should be done on the track, and the winning we should just focus on what's happening on track, focusing on the championship, everything like that, because a lot of the stuff can get, dragged through the mud, side politics, whatever it is. And it's becoming a big issue, I think. And it's starting to, I wouldn't say tarnish a little bit the sport, but I think that it's just becoming an issue for me as well. So I think that you got to focus on what's on track as well. And the last thing I want to talk about before we talk about Mercedes straight line speed, that some people are saying it's advantage or not a disadvantage, but I'm just going to pull some charts here. You can see. But the last thing I will say is that looking towards the next 3 races, I just hope we have a close championship. That's all I want. I wouldn't mind if Lewis wins this weekend to keep it close. I wouldn't mind if Max wins because I'm a Max fan. So either way, it's a win-win because realistically, if Lewis wins, he brings it down to 7 points. And then again, he wins in Saudi Arabia. Then roughly they could be tied. They could be equaled in points. Now, again, that's granted. None of them take the fastest lap. And Max Verstappen would have finished second in the next 2 races. Now, again, what that does for Lewis Hamilton going into the last races, he has all the momentum because he's won the last 2 races. Or the last 3 races. He won at Brazil, he won at Qatar, and won at Saudi. But if Max wins one of the next 2 races, either in Qatar or in Saudi Arabia, things could get still spicy towards the end of the year because, obviously with only 3 races left, things are starting to tighten up as well. But anyways, let's move on to obviously talking about Mercedes speed because a lot of people were questioning about that. We're talking about like, hold on, how quick is Mercedes in the straights? Is it illegal? Is the wing illegal? What's the whole deal there? And I'm just going to pull up some stats here of the top speeds from qualifying. So you can see, obviously, Kimi Räikkönen, 330 kilometers an hour, Giovinazzi, 328, Alonso, 328, Lewis Hamilton, 327. So obviously that's qualifying session maximum speeds. Now, regardless, that's in different points. But Max Verstappen is 17th at 318. Now, I'm not saying, the Red Bull engine is not as, but that is a mighty difference between Lewis Hamilton's car, obviously with the new engine fitted into it, versus Max Verstappen. And we saw even in the pace as well, we saw how quickly Mercedes was in qualifying in Q1, Q2, and Q3 like Lewis Hamilton was dominating this weekend, or that weekend, sorry, this past weekend, where realistically Red Bull didn't have a chance. They were 4 tenths off of, now again, Bottas and Max were still really close, but in terms of Lewis Hamilton fitting with that new ICE, that internal combustion engine, was miles ahead, just miles ahead. And obviously during the race, he had fresher tires. Again, that's an advantage as well. 3 laps newer tires. But regardless, he finished 10 seconds ahead of Verstappen. Now, regardless, I mean, like usually whenever you have fresher tires and you pass someone, you finish maybe like 4 or 5 seconds ahead. But to finish 10 seconds ahead of Verstappen clearly shows how quickly and how fast that new engine is. Now, I'm not saying it's illegal, whatever it is. That's a new engine. We've seen it before. We've seen it before countless times. We saw it with Charles Leclerc as well. He got a new engine fitted after, I believe it was Russia, and he's been like just lights out just since then, just dominating in terms of their battle with McLaren. So it goes both ways in that whenever another like opposing team fighting with their rivals fits a new engine, we can clearly see the vast improvements that they're making. We saw it with Max after Russia. Obviously, he took the grid penalty, got to P2. But after that, the US Grand Prix, again, we all expected Mercedes to be super quick, but Red Bull with that new engine was speedy, quick, and they won. They also won in Mexico. They almost won in Brazil. But if it wasn't for Lewis Hamilton's new engine, we could be seeing a very different title fight. Right now, instead of at 14, it could be all up to 27. So it is a massive point swing right there this past weekend that we saw. So in terms of Mercedes speed, I really think it is truly quite impressive. Obviously, you saw from the practice numbers, not as impressive as we saw here in Brazil. Again, because it's a different track. Brazil is a very fast track. It's a very small circuit. Now, when you look at Qatar, it's longer. It's a long straight. Yes, you're going to have the advantage of going down the long straight with that pure straight line speed that Hamilton's going to have over Verstappen. But Red Bull's just going to have to deal with it, as many teams have dealt with it in the past. We haven't really seen McLaren find an answer for Ferrari the past 3 races. They've been dominating McLaren. Ferrari has. So it's going to be interesting to see how well Red Bull responds versus Mercedes speed, what they're going to do. Are they going to protest their wing? Because there was talk of it as well. There was talk that Christian Horner was going to protest it. We could see it happen. Who knows? Maybe that could be the case. I mean, like, I wouldn't be surprised because Christian Horner does like to protest a lot of things as well. So realistically, I wouldn't be surprised if they were going to protest as well. So anyways, let's move on to qualifying predictions. Obviously, qualifying is tomorrow, 9 to 10 a.m. Getting back to those regular schedules, a lot of for the Europeans, but for us Americans, Canadians, it's like, it's normal now because I like having qualifying in the morning. I like having the race in the morning. You watch the race, and then you just get on with your day as well. So in terms of my qualifying predictions, looking at based on purely just practice, based purely on just the practice numbers that we've seen from the past practice 1, practice 2, I wouldn't be surprised to see either Max Verstappen, Valtteri Bottas, or maybe even Pierre Gasly on pole. But again, it's qualifying, so let's be realistic. In terms of actually realistic predictions, I'm thinking Lewis Hamilton is probably going to grab pole. Max Verstappen's going to be right behind him. Valtteri Bottas is going to be behind him. Pierre Gasly is going to sneak up and take P4 over Sergio Perez. I really think that AlphaTauri is showing some true pace in Qatar, based on what we've seen so far from the true practice sessions. So I think that's going to be the case as well in terms of the qualifying. Looking later down the grid, I think probably I could see both Ferraris making it into Q3. They're probably going to get 5th or 6th. I wouldn't see maybe the McLarens making it into Q3, just the way that they've been struggling the past few races, and the fact that the way AlphaTauri's been, the way that AlphaTauri is showing their pace, they could take some spots away from McLaren if McLaren doesn't get up there. So I think really realistically, we're probably going to see both Mercedes car, both Red Bull cars, both Ferraris. I would say probably one of the AlphaTauri cars would be Pierre Gasly, would be my guess for the one AlphaTauri car. I wouldn't say both Aston Martins are going to make it into Q3 in terms of to get into that top 10. I would say one of them, which would be, I'm going to say Sebastian Vettel is going to make it into Q3. And then to round up, maybe one of the Alpines, Fernando Alonso would probably be my guess. Now, looking ahead to the actual pure race predictions. Now, obviously, qualifying is one thing. Now, looking at, okay, is Hamilton going to convert that pole position into a win? I think he very may well do that. Obviously, looking at the conditions, possibly a two-stop strategy for Qatar, which really could make an interesting race again to see, okay, last time out, really what we saw was obviously Red Bull got cut out twice by Mercedes, first with the undercut and then with the overcut with the track position. As obviously they pulled the undercut, then obviously they had fresher tires. Oh, sorry, no, they didn't have fresher tires, but they ended up getting track position over Max Verstappen eventually at some point as well, because Max Verstappen ended up pitting and then kind of lost some position as well. And then Lewis Hamilton stayed out to gain track position, which he did do that. So, and then he came in, get 3 laps newer fresh tires. So it could very well happen again in terms of Mercedes outclassing Red Bull for a strategy. But I don't know. I would say Lewis Hamilton is going to take the win at Qatar. Max Verstappen's going to come home second. And I would say probably Pierre Gasly actually is going to say bold prediction. Pierre Gasly is going to take a podium in Qatar along with Valtteri Bottas behind him. And then I wouldn't be surprised Sergio Perez finishing 5th, possibly. Maybe we'll say 4th. I'll say Sergio Perez is going to finish 4th behind Pierre Gasly, and Valtteri Bottas is going to finish 5th. And then obviously looking down to the rest of the way, I would say both Ferraris will finish 6th and 7th. I would say Aston Martin will finish within their top 10. I can see a McLaren finishing within the top 10 as well. So I would say probably 9th or 10th for a McLaren in terms of the total race predictions as well. So, and that's pretty much going to do it for the show today. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out theintermissionsports.com for more content. We've got lots of content coming out, lots of motorsport content, NFL, NBA, NHL content as the seasons are all kind of continuing on. Obviously, the Formula One season is coming to an end, but don't worry, we're still going to be making lots of content for you coming out, lots of motorsport content. So stay tuned and have a great weekend and happy Friday.